Hello everyone, and welcome to the Creature Hunt Show. I'm your host, Creature Hunt Guy, coming at you with another review. But this one's a bit different than other ones, because today I'm talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street, the film series, which in my opinion, in this case I'm talking about numbers 1 through 6. I'm not talking about Wes Craven's A New Nightmare on. Why? Well, because this 1 through 6 are the ones I refer to as the classic ones. And they kind of go together. They have somewhat of a continuity, and I haven't seen Wes Craven's A New Nightmare, so I don't know. But as far as the rest of them go, this is a review of those. But I'm not going to get too much into them, like the first one. I'll do a separate review for that maybe sometime later on. But right now I'm going to focus mainly on the sequels, and also do a little bit of a, what I think of them. Starting off, I want to at least mention the first movie. So the first movie came out in the early 80s. It was a real big hit as a new teen scream movie, but also as a landmark for the horror movie slasher film genre. And it became a defining point in the history of horror movies. And it was and now is known as one of the big horror movie stars, as the main character is known as Freddy Krueger. So, it was good, I liked it okay, but for some reason it just didn't hit me as much as I would have thought it would have. I didn't really like it as much as I would have liked, as I like some of the other horror movies like Halloween or Scream or ones like that. Now why this is because it's not but that's not exactly fair to compare it to to a movie like, let's say, Halloween, because it's different. For one thing, it's got supernatural elements in it, and for another, it is just basically almost a different genre in and of itself, because it's separate. It's like, he's not just a serial killer, he's a monster that hunts you in your dreams, which is really, really weird, and it's nothing like just a regular serial killer that goes around stabbing people. It's much different. So it really wasn't exactly what I was expecting, but it also set me up for a good time to be enjoying the sequels, which some people like and some people don't. It just depends on who you are. But for me, I actually kind of like the sequels, all of them, just because I went into them with not very high expectations and came out, well, fairly indisappointed. Well, what's the word there? So let me just quickly go over the second movie's basic plot. It's about one of the kids from Elm Street who's a child from one of the parents that burned Freddy Krueger and, apparently killed him. And, well, Freddy Krueger needs to come back needs to gain enough strength and power to come back so he can start hunting kids again. So what he's going to do is come through with this one guy, and you don't need to know his name. I'm sure they said his name, but it's not important who he is. It's just that he's there to be tormented by Freddy Krueger, and that's exactly what happens. The second one was pretty good. It was pretty interesting, actually, I gotta say. In fact, I almost kind of liked it a bit more than the first one. I think the first one was better than the second one. But it still was interesting, and it wasn't just the same rehashed story all over again. It was a little bit of a different angle. It was like, instead of Freddy Krueger already being in your dreams and attacking you, he takes over this kid's body to come back to life, which, you gotta admit, is a pretty creepy idea, and, well, it's just different. It was somewhat original, so I gotta say, it worked out pretty well for me anyway. Especially like the scene in this movie where Freddy Krueger is doing his usual thing where he creeps some kid out by tearing something off of his body, and the main kid, who I swear looks like Mark Hamill, starts screaming like a little girl. A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. This one to me was the best of the series, I think. Even better than the first one. I really do like this one because it allows the main characters to actually fight back inside of the dream. It's like everyone's, dream, to be able to dream inside their dream, and it's cool, because you get to be anything you wanted to ever be, the things you dream about being, like a superhero, or super strong, or, some of the fantasies, admittedly, are very odd, but they do come in handy, and they do get to fight off Freddy Krueger. The thing that was kind of disappointing to me was that they didn't get much progress with it. Freddy still was able to kill off most of them, and when it was all said and done with, that wasn't really what helped them out in the end. But the main character from the first movie came back and is now a psychiatrist or psychologist or something, and she helps out these kids that are all having a group nightmare that is reoccurring. That's because one of the girls is able to bring other people into her dream. So what they do is decide to become dream warriors and to fight back Freddy Krueger inside their dream where they can hurt him. And it's pretty cool, and of course at the end, well, I won't tell you what the ending is, but still, it's pretty neat. And some of the main characters die. I'm not going to tell you who, because I hate spoilers, but some of them do die, and some of them live, which is neat. They didn't kill them all off. They left some continuity standing for the inevitable fourth sequel, but we'll get to that later. This one to me was the coolest because there was a kid that was able to be super strong, because that's what he dreamed about. There was a girl that was able to be super bad. Is that the word? I don't know, but it's still cool to see the kid's main strengths that they use to their advantage in the dreams, and it's really neat. And it even plays to the nerds out there that were really into role-playing back then. It was a big deal, and I suppose it is still now, but still. It's still really neat, and I think it's really cool. And to me, it was the best one, the third one, and I know that sounds weird. That's usually the trilogies the third of the trilogy doesn't really, stand up that well to criticism, but to me it was. And seeing as how it wasn't the end of the series, it's only basically the middle. It did pretty well, I think, on its own. So that's Dream Warriors. Nightmare on Elm Street 4 Dream Master. Now this one was pretty cool, actually. It wasn't as good as the third one in my mind, but it did have a lot of things in it that was pretty cool. And it was also very closely related to it, and I love continuity, especially in these giant, long strings of movies that is in one franchise. I love it how they link them together sometimes. And they have them, although some of the main characters that were from the first movie, that were from the third movie, are now in the fourth movie, they don't focus on them very long, including the girl who can pull people into her dreams that was in the third one. She makes a friend with this other girl who eventually becomes the main star for the next movie as well. And she passes her power on to this new girl, and basically her friends start dying as well. And to me, this one has the most intense death sequences, or dreams, because it seems like these kids that die in this movie just get the absolute worst I've seen done to any of them in any of the movies before or afterwards. It's incredible. It's pretty nerve-wracking in some of them too, I gotta say. Just gets you where you don't feel good, But it's still pretty neat, and it does have continuity, like I said. And the story is, the story's okay. But basically what happens is the new girl is able to pull other people into her dreams now, and that's why her friends die. And although not all of her friends die, including the one who becomes her boyfriend later on, who, I bet you can't guess who that is, can you? But, for those of you who have seen that, I bet you know who I'm talking about. But anyway, so what happens is she eventually, of course, defeats Krueger in the end. Now, these stories have become a bit of a rinse and repeat sort of routine ever since the second one, but they are still somewhat different in their own unique way. They all have at least tried to put some plot twists in it here and there, and in this fourth one, they did some things I didn't think they would do, places I didn't think they'd go, and they went there, so that's kind of neat. But it's basically the same story over and over again. But in the ending of the fourth one, I'm not giving away anything because I'm pretty sure you realize, of course, Krueger is supposedly dead, which he's not. He's going to come back in a couple more years, and he's going to make another movie, and then another, and then another, and then another. But the girl actually thinks he's dead, and the way they left it is they actually made you think he was. In fact, I was thinking, okay, how's he going to come back from this? But they made it. They did it. Bait and switch again. But I really did like this movie, and it was almost as good as the Dream Warriors movie, but, I just like the idea of the Dream Warriors where they didn't really dwell on the fact that the kids could use their own special powers in the dreams in this one, and that's why they got so brutally murdered. And, like I said, if you like brutal murders in a nightmare movie, then this is for you. This is definitely for you. But anyway, So, Krueger dies, and the girl lives happily ever after. Basic story. Well, the next one. And now, A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Dream Child. And as the name implies, it has something to do with child and a lot to do with dreams. So the basic story is that the girl that now has inherited the old girl, Alice's, power for bringing people into her dreams, well, she now is going to, I guess, get married. People don't get married anymore. But yes, that's what happens, and she's going to be pregnant with her boyfriend, whom I'm sure you all realize what happens to him in this movie as well. But the thing is, Freddy Krueger, who we thought was dead, apparently isn't, and is now somehow messing around in her mind. He's currently stuck inside of her mind. And since the baby's growing inside of her as well, he's trying to take over the baby and have him basically become his offspring and take over for him when he's born. Well, we also get to delve into Freddy's actual history as a person, which is weird. And that's basically what this movie's about. And it turns out that his mother was a nun. Weird. And then apparently he was... But this nun, this lady, Mrs. Krueger, obviously, was raped by 100 maniacs, is how the story goes. And, well, thus he was born. So, basically, and as the trailer says, his life and his death have been a complete nightmare. And so, now he is out for, offspring. That's weird. You're just going to be hearing a lot of weird out of me, because this is weird. So, of course, the girl does not let this happen, and she has to fight back. And in the process, some more of her friends die, and she has an even more tragic life. But her dad actually starts to become more of a friend, whereas in the fourth movie, he was a complete useless son of a gun who didn't do anything. And in this movie, at least he's supportive. He may not believe her, but he is supportive, and that counts, especially in these movies. He may not die. So at the very end, well, I won't tell you what happens, but there's this kid in there, and I'll bet you can recognize who he is. He plays the girl's son, and he's like 5, I guess, here, but you'll recognize him from a major movie that came out a few years later. You will recognize him as a kid. He's a kid later, but he's a littler kid here. I kind of messed that up, didn't I? But yes, you will recognize him. His face is absolutely, unmistakably recognizable. If you don't know who I'm talking about, go watch it yourself. Then watch a movie that came out in 1995 or 3. This movie I'm talking about, 1993 for sure. Go watch it and then watch this. But that's the basic story about. Like I said, I don't want to get into too many spoilers, but that's the basic story. It tells Freddy Krueger's background, history, how he was born, all that stuff, and then it talks about how he wants to take over this baby growing inside this girl and have this little boy be Freddy Krueger Jr., basically. And of course, he dies in the end because I won't give it away because it's kind of neat how he dies, and it really looks like the actual end to Freddy Krueger. It looks like he's done. He's gone. He's never coming back ever again. And then the 6th one comes around.
Back here, Dan!
A Nightmare on Elm Street 6, Freddy's Dead, is the title. So I guess you're pretty much settling yourself up for the ending of a series, which I guess basically they did. Anyway, we'll get to that later. But for now, this is the story. Basically what happens is there's nothing to do with the other characters because they're all gone. At the end of the 5th movie, the girl and her dad and her baby all had a happy life, and they never were heard from again, apparently. But the last of the Elm Street kids, I mean the actual last of the Elm Street kids, is trying to get away from Elm Street, and pretty much manages to, except he somehow ends up in what are those places they call them? A youth rehabilitation center, where a certain girl seems to be working at, or not girl but lady. Anyway, so yeah, he can't remember where he's from because he has amnesia. Basically, though, what Freddy wants to do is bring back someone to Elm Street so he can finally, well, I guess be friends with his actual kid. I don't want to ruin the ending, but he had a kid. I mean, a real kid of his own before he became Freddy Krueger, the eternal, serial killer. So he uses this one kid, Spencer is his name, to bring back his child, who isn't a child anymore, let's say that much. And among the people that he comes back with is the therapist and then 3 other children. Or not children, teens. But yeah, so some of them die, some of them live, and at the end they have to team up together and bring him back into the real world. Which, why hasn't anyone done that before? What they basically do is put one of them to sleep, and they bring him back out into the real world so they can kill him like a regular person. And somehow that doesn't work. It got kind of vague. And this is one of the reasons I don't like this one that much. But it does do a very good job of explaining how he became Freddy Krueger. Because apparently what happened is there's these demons that are looking around constantly for the most messed up person on the planet, and they found Freddy Krueger while he was being burned alive and decided to offer him eternal life to do whatever he wants to do. And, well, if you offer eternal life to do whatever you want to do and do what he does best, then you want to a thug who kills teenagers, well, what's he going to do? Use all the spare time he's got in the world to kill teenagers. The way he knows how to. Really well. But not only that, we get to see a little bit about his history, back when he was a kid, back when he was a teenager, and then when he was a married man. Trying to chisel out a nice life in quiet 1960s suburbia. And while that doesn't really work, because of his nature, it leads up to how he is burned alive by a bunch of angry citizens. So, and then we find out who his kid is, and the kid has to make a decision whether this kid wants to become another Freddy Krueger or wants to stand by the kid's self, him or her. I'm not going to say who it is or what it is. It's either a girl or a guy, or a female or a male. And you have to watch the movie because I hate spoilers and I ain't spoiling ya. But in the end, they kill Freddy Krueger and he's dead. Freddy is dead. Or at least until the next movie, which I haven't seen yet, and I plan to sometime. Wes Craven's A New Nightmare. But as far as the original 6 go, that is them. And this is what I think of them. First one was pretty good, but it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. It was a little bit less than what I was expecting, but it wasn't bad. It was just different, is all I'm saying. Now, that didn't give me very high expectations for the sequels, but I surprisingly like the sequels a lot more than I thought I would. In fact, I guess I like them better than the first one. But looking back at it now, I'd probably like the first one better. But of the 6 of them, I like the third one the best. Of the 6 of them, the one I like the worst is the 6th, I think. Just because it didn't seem as well. It was in that period in the 90s when they were just making movies just because they can, and the special effects. Well, the special effects were never fantastic, but in this one, they were especially not fantastic. And I don't know. It was still neat to see the background of Freddy Krueger and finally get an end to this whole thing, but it still wasn't quite as much as I like the 3rd, 4th, and 5th one, which I think of the 3 I like the best. But it still was really cool. I really liked it. If you are a horror fan, you'll definitely want to see these. And if you're a slasher serial killer fan, I want to advise you on something. If you're one of those guys that like the mystery sort of aspect of serial killers, like Silence of the Lambs or Halloween, where at least some of it is grounded in reality, you will not like these. These are for teens, and these are teen screams. That's what they're called, and that's really what they're for. Now, if you're staying up late with a bunch of your friends till like 12 o'clock and you're doing a Freddy marathon, then you just go for it, just do it, because you're going to have fun. Maybe if you're stoned, but you're still going to have fun, okay? So, that's what I'd say you do. Of course, this goes for a very specific group of people that you just, lots of people aren't going to like this, some people will, and the some people that will probably really like these as far as a horror movie series goes. And, like I said, I liked kinda, of course, what does that say about me? But then again, I'm probably in that very small demographic that would actually appreciate these for what they are. Just a fun teen scream movie series, movie franchise. So, yeah, I'd say go for it. I mean, they were fun. But there was one weird... In the sixth one, I forgot to mention, the one weirdest scene I've ever seen in a Freddy film ever is seen in the sixth movie. And I think you can agree with me on that one.
To beat my high score. I am forever